Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most iconic film franchises of all time. We're sticking with the topic of James Bond. Growing up in the 1990s and early 2000s, I was constantly surrounded by James Bond marathons on TV, and of course Blockbuster was basically my second home. Whether it was Connery, Moore, Brosnan, or any of the others, I watched them all at one point or another. But today, I'm going to rank the official James Bond actors from my least favorite to my absolute top pick.
I admire your courage.
I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Keep in mind, this is just my personal ranking, but I'd love to hear yours in the comments below. And as always, remember to comment, rate, subscribe, maybe hit that little notification bell. I really appreciate it.
I think you got the point.
This is Easy Ranks all the Bond actors.
What a helpful chap.
Number 6, Roger Moore.
Bring tears to your eyes.
Starting at the bottom of my list, we have Roger Moore. Now don't get me wrong, Moore had an incredible run as Bond, spanning 7 movies from 1973 until 1985. But for me, his portrayal was just too comedic at times. The eyebrow raises, the one-liners, it was all fun, but it often felt like it steered too far from what I think Bond should be, almost as if it was a parody of the character. I appreciate the campiness and how he embraced the laughter and the lighter tone, but after 7 films, it felt like the humor overshadowed the danger. His Bond movies were a product of their time, and they definitely have their place, but he's just not my favorite, so therefore, he's at the bottom of my list.
I wasn't after it. I was apparently when they first started. I was already doing The Saint, and I was on the short list. Apparently, it was Pat McGowan and Sean, and myself. Then when Sean departed, they asked me to do it.
Number 5, George Lazenby.
This never happened to the other fella.
The one-hit wonder of the Bond world. He only starred in On Her Majesty's Secret Service in 1969, having taken the role over from Sean Connery. But what a performance it was! Lazenby brought a vulnerability and depth that was ahead of its time, and his Bond actually gets married. A bold move that still stands out in the series, and the only thread that really connected the Bonds together for most of the franchise's history. Yes, his tenure was short-lived, and though I respect what he brought to the table, he didn't have the chance to really make Bond his own. Still, his film remains one of the most emotional entries in the series, and his decision not to return as Bond, one of the worst in film history.
But one thing you can say about George is that he did it his way.
What were you doing before this?
I was a model. And then, if you want to go right back, I was a salesman and a mechanic before that. It's the first time I've ever gone up for a picture. Applied for a picture.
Number 4, Timothy Dalton.
Am I going to win or lose?
Lose.
Timothy Dalton played the Bond that took the character back to his darker, more serious roots. After the lighter Moore era, Dalton's portrayal in The Living Daylights and License to Kill was a breath of fresh air. He brought a cold, almost ruthless edge that aligned closely with Ian Fleming's original vision. I love how gritty and raw Dalton's Bond was, but unfortunately he only got 2 films. I always wonder what could have been if he had a few more under his belt.
And I was wondering why you stopped the James Bond.
Oh, well, because I did it, when I started it was 8 years ago, and then I did another one 6 years ago, and then the movies were brought to a halt because of a lawsuit between the producers and the studio, which meant there was this huge 6-year gap. And then when that was cleared up, they told me they wanted me to do another, but, I felt I'd done it. Bond is a dominating image, and if I started again now, 6 years later, it'd maybe for the rest of my life.
Number 3, Pierce Brosnan.
One rises to meet a challenge.
Now here's where the nostalgia kicks in for me. Pierce Brosnan was my Bond growing up. GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, and Die Another Day. They were all staples of my childhood, and Brosnan brought a blend of charm, wit, and just enough darkness to the role. He was the perfect mix of Connery's suave and Moore's cheekiness, but with a bit of that 90s edge. I loved the action sequences, the gadgets, and how Brosnan felt like the quintessential Bond for a modern audience. Sure, some of the films haven't aged perfectly, but Brosnan remains one of my favorites. Plus, this is the Bond that ushered in the era of Judi Dench's M. And I'll tell you what, you can't get any better than Judi Dench's M, right?
Sure, I've had the time of my life the last 6 years. This has been the best. So one can only kind of take the high road with something like this and just enjoy it and celebrate it. So would I like to go again? Yes, I'd love to do a fifth.
Number 2. Daniel Craig.
What makes you think this is my first time?
Alright, I'll admit it. I was skeptical when Daniel Craig was first announced as Bond. He was different, blonde, gritty, and not that polished, but did he prove me wrong? Over time, Craig's Bond grew on me, especially with Casino Royale and the later Skyfall. He brought a depth and emotional complexity that felt new and real, redefining the character for the 21st century. Craig's Bond is tough, vulnerable, and sometimes brutally human, which is why he's earned the second spot on my list. From hating the casting to loving the man, Craig's journey as James Bond has been a wild one.
James Bond has changed my life immeasurably. I mean, it's like, and 99% of it for the better. And I would say it's been, I could never imagine being where I am today without James Bond. So it's been an extraordinary part of my life.
Number 1. Sean Connery.
Shocking.
And finally, at the top spot, no real surprise here, right? It's Sean Connery, the original Bond, the legend. Connery defined the role and set the gold standard with his cool, sophisticated, and often ruthless portrayal. From Dr. No to Goldfinger, Connery's Bond was the epitome of style and danger. He had it all: the charisma, the looks, the confidence. He was Bond in every sense, and even today, his influence can be seen in every actor who has taken on the role. For me, Connery will always be the definitive James Bond.
What do you think is the difference between your playing of Bond and Roger Moore's playing? I'm not asking you to compare whether you think his is better or yours is better, but what's the
well, I don't think it gets down to that. I think it's just a different appetite, that's all. For example, I think that the fundamental difference is that I played Bond and in this one as well with the reality, credibility, and hopefully still encompassing stunts and effects and what have you, and out of it some indigenous humor. And anything that happens is possible. And I feel that Roger, which I think he may have inherited in part from after Diamonds Are Forever, where they were already getting into that area of too much hardware, that was more important, and his is a sort of parody of the character, as it were, in that situation, so that you will go for the laugh or the humor at whatever the cost of the credibility or the reality. I think that's just basically the difference, and I think he took another direction with it that way and acquired an entirely different audience.
Yes, you both. I think you've both got separate followings.
Yeah.
You'll no doubt be delighted to know that in a recent poll, I think it was 62% of men and 56% of women preferred you as James Bond.
Well, you can't fight intelligence.
Indeed, you can't.
Bond's gone on now for 40 years, and other actors have taken part. Why do you think its success is so enduring?
The ingredients are all there for the kind of movie that people want to see. It has very good entertaining value. For example, it's a spectrum of actors. I mean, from myself to Daniel Craig, who I thought was fantastic, marvelous in the part.
Daniel Craig said he saw all the films, but he took an immense amount from your films. I suppose nicked is a good word.
Yeah, well, I'm flattered. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's there to see, and the danger element, I think he really gets it.
So there you have it, my ranking of all the official James Bond actors. Each actor brought something unique to the role, from Connery's iconic beginnings to Craig's modern reinvention. But no matter who your favorite is, there's no denying the impact and legacy of James Bond. Let me know your rankings in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more Bond content and movie fun. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep your martinis shaken, not stirred.